Most people have no idea they're being tested. They think the snide comment was just a comment. They think the interruption was accidental. They think the dismissal, the silence, the condescension. They think all of it is random. It isn't. People test you constantly, every day. In small ways, in quiet ways, in ways you've been trained to ignore or excuse or laugh off. And the way you respond to those tests, not just the big ones, but especially the small ones, tells the people around you exactly what kind of person you are, what you'll tolerate, what you're afraid of, how much of yourself you've already given away without even knowing it. This is what most people never see. Because here's the truth about social testing. It is never really about the moment it happens in. The man who makes that cut-in remark about your career, he's not curious about your career. He's probing for softness. He wants to know if you flinch, if you rush to defend yourself, if you shrink. The woman who asks, with that particular kind of smile, how things are going. She already knows how things are going. She wants to watch your face when you answer. The colleague who interrupts you in a meeting, who talks over your idea and lets someone else take the credit, he's not distracted. He's measuring, watching to see if you'll push back or swallow it quietly and smile. This is what social testing actually is. It is a read, a careful, quiet read of exactly how much you value yourself. And the first truth you must understand is this. How you respond to a test determines whether more tests follow. Most people fail here completely. They respond to the test, to the comment, the dismissal, the disrespect, emotionally. They get defensive. They explain themselves. They laugh too hard at the joke that wasn't really a joke. They let it pass and then lie awake at 2 a.m. replaying it. All of that is information. Every anxious laugh, every over-explanation, every rushed justification. It communicates one thing with complete clarity. You're available. You're available to be provoked, to be rattled, to be moved. And once someone learns you're movable, they will keep moving you. Not out of cruelty, out of instinct. Because humans are wired to keep probing the things that respond. This is how hierarchy actually works. Not through force, through accumulated data about who flinches and who doesn't. Stop flinching. The second truth is harder. Most tests aren't designed to break you. They're designed to locate you. Understand what that means. When someone tests you, with condescension, with a challenge, with a small power play, they're not necessarily trying to destroy you. They're trying to figure out where you stand, what you're made of, whether you belong in a certain category of people. There are two categories, broadly speaking. People who can be managed, and people who cannot. The first category gets managed. Politely, sometimes even warmly, but managed. Their opinions get noted and quietly ignored. Their presence gets tolerated. Their requests get processed on someone else's timeline. The second category gets treated differently, not because they're louder, not because they're aggressive, but because something about the way they move, the way they respond, or more precisely, the way they don't respond, communicates that managing them isn't going to work. The test is the sorting mechanism, and most people don't even know they're being sorted. So what do you actually do when someone tests you? The wrong answer, the answer most people give, is to react. React visibly, react quickly, match their energy, defend your position, prove them wrong, show them you're not to be disrespected, This is exactly what the test is designed to provoke. Because the moment you react, the moment you show that the test landed, you've answered the question they were really asking. And the answer you gave is, yes, I can be moved. Yes, this matters to me. Yes, I need you to think better of me. That's a confession. And once you confess, the dynamic has been established. The third truth: silence is not weakness. It is the most unreadable thing you can offer. When someone tests you and you say nothing, not from fear but from stillness, something strange happens. They don't get the data they came for. They push harder sometimes. They repeat the comment. They reframe it. They try a different angle. And all of that extra effort, all of that escalation, tells the room something very specific. That they needed a reaction. That you not reacting disturbed them enough to try again. Who has the power in that moment? Think about that carefully. The person who speaks to create a reaction has given their strategy away the moment they speak. The person who watches without reacting has revealed nothing, has conceded nothing, has spent nothing. Most people think that speaking is power, that asserting, correcting, winning the verbal exchange, that's dominance. It isn't. The most psychologically sophisticated thing you can do when tested is to make the other person uncertain about whether the test even landed, whether you noticed, whether you care. Uncertainty is unbearable to most people. It's the one thing they cannot manage. Give them uncertainty. Let me be precise about something, because this is where most people misunderstand. This is not about being cold. It is not about being distant or disconnected from the people around you. This is about knowing the difference between a real interaction and a performance. When someone tests you, when the comment has an edge, when the question has a hook, when the dynamic has a point to it, they are not talking to you. They are performing a small experiment on you. You are not obligated to be a cooperative subject. The moment you recognize that an interaction has shifted from genuine exchange to a subtle power play, you are allowed to step back. Not loudly, not dramatically. Simply step back. Remove your emotional investment from the outcome. Let them perform the experiment into a void. That void, that calm and absolute blankness, it is more unsettling to most people than any comeback you could give. The fourth truth, and this one is uncomfortable. Most people who test you are not your enemies. They're afraid. The person who makes the cutting remark about your ambitions, they're afraid of their own. The colleague who minimizes your contribution, they feel minimized. The person who challenges your confidence in small, persistent ways, they lack it completely. Testing is, at its root, a form of comparison. People test others when they're trying to understand where they stand relative to them, when they feel threatened by what you're building, or what you are, or what you represent. This doesn't make the testing acceptable, but it changes how you hold it. When you understand that most tests come from fear, from a quiet, desperate need to establish hierarchy, to feel secure, to locate themselves in relation to you, you stop taking it personally. And the moment you stop taking it personally, you stop reacting like it's personal. That shift, that internal, invisible shift, is what changes everything. Because here's what nobody tells you about people who've learned to handle testing. They don't actually think about it that much. The image most people have is of a calculating, cold strategist. Someone who carefully controls every reaction, who plans every response, who plays the game with surgical precision. That's not how it works. When you truly understand what tests are, when you've sat with this long enough, you stop needing to manage your reactions consciously, because you've genuinely stopped caring in the way that makes you vulnerable. Not stopped caring about people, stopped caring about their assessments of you. Those are different things, profoundly different. When you no longer need the approval of people who are testing you, when their opinion of you stops being something you track obsessively, the reaction stops arising. The defensiveness has nothing to be defensive about. This is not something you perform. This is something you become. The fifth truth: the test that deserves a response is rare. And when it comes, the response is never what they expect. Sometimes the test isn't subtle. Sometimes it's a direct challenge, a public dismissal, a clear attempt to undermine you in front of others, a moment where staying silent would actually communicate defeat rather than stillness. Those moments exist, and in those moments, most people go in one of the two directions. They collapse, over-apologize, over-explain, concede more than they needed to, or they explode, overcorrect, become aggressive, try to win the moment at the cost of the relationship or the room. Both are traps. What actually works in those rare moments is something much harder, responding with less than they expected, not more. Less. If someone challenges you publicly, expecting anger or defense, answer with one calm sentence that addresses the substance and nothing else. No emotional charge, no edge, just the fact stated simply, and then silence. That restraint, that measured, economical use of response, it signals something most people have never learned to signal: that you have more in reserve, that what just came out was the fraction, not the whole. And that is far more frightening to most people than any display of anger ever could be. There is a particular kind of person that stops getting tested eventually, not because people respect them in some abstract sense, but because something in the data these people emit, something in their bearing, their pace, their relationship to other people's opinions, communicates that testing them is not going to be a productive experiment, that the probe will return nothing usable, that the discomfort of their stillness is not worth whatever hierarchy the test was trying to establish. These people don't become untouchable through force. They become untouchable through consistency. Every test they didn't react to, every provocation that landed on calm ground, every moment they chose precision over emotion, those moments compound. They build a record, and the record speaks for them before they enter a room. You're building a record right now. Every time you kept your composure when you could have broken. Every time you stayed silent when speaking would have felt better but meant less. Every time you responded with restraint instead of heat. That record is your real reputation. Not what you say about yourself. Not what you've achieved on paper. Not the image you manage. The record. Ask yourself something honest. How many tests have you failed quietly? Not dramatically, not in moments you'd identify as conflicts. The small ones. The comment you laughed off. The dismissal you didn't challenge. The moment you over-explained because you needed them to understand. How many of those have there been? And what did they teach the people around you? This is not about self-punishment. It's about clarity. Because the only way to change what people test you for, the only way to alter the category they've placed you in, is to begin responding differently. Not loudly, not with a sudden shift that announces itself. Quietly, one test at a time. Let the next one land on different ground. The world is very good at telling people who they are, and most people are very good at believing it. They absorb the assessments. They internalize the dismissals. They wear the category they were placed in as though it's a description rather than a position that can shift. But here's what the test givers don't want you to understand. The category is never final. It is updated constantly by the data you provide. Every response you give, every reaction, every stillness, every measured word is a data point, and data points accumulate. The person who changes how they respond to testing doesn't announce the change. They don't explain it. They don't ask for new treatment. They simply stop providing the data that justified the old treatment. And one day, without fanfare, without confrontation, the tests stop. Not because people became kinder, because the experiment stopped producing results. There's something else about the nature of being tested that most people never examine. The fact that you're being tested at all means you're in someone's field of attention. People don't test what they're indifferent to. They test what they're uncertain about, what makes them slightly uncomfortable, what they're trying to classify because they can't quite place it. That discomfort is not a problem. That discomfort is proximity to something they haven't fully processed yet. You don't have to resolve it for them. In fact, the moment you rush to resolve it, the moment you explain yourself, soften the edges, make yourself easier to categorize, you've done their psychological work for them. Let them sit with the uncertainty. Let the discomfort do what discomfort does. Most of what's interesting about a person is exactly what refuses to be easily explained. What you're really building when you learn to handle testing with stillness and precision is not a persona. It is not a social strategy. It is not a mask. It is a self that is no longer organized around other people's assessments of it. And that particular kind of interior stability is the rarest thing in most social environments. It is so rare that people instinctively sense it and can't quite name what they're sensing. They call it confidence sometimes, presence, charisma, quiet authority. But it's none of those things exactly. It's just someone who isn't performing, someone who stopped needing the test to go a certain way. Someone who genuinely, at an internal level, understands that the assessment of people who are probing you for weakness is the last opinion that should govern anything you do. That understanding changes how you walk into rooms. It changes what you say and when. It changes the quality of your silences. Because there's a difference between silence born from fear and silence born from nothing to prove. People feel that difference. They feel it immediately, even when they can't articulate why. The person who says nothing because they're afraid sounds like nothing. The person who says nothing because they're settled sounds like everything. This is the thing nobody teaches. And it's the thing you'll understand more completely the next time you encounter what's still waiting to be said. Watch what happens when you stop performing calm and simply become it.